Gareth, thank you so much for taking the time out, and thank you for making this documentary. What made you make it?
Basically, having delivered the Dimbleby Lecture last year, the response really surprised me in terms of positive reaction to the subject. So I think when I first spoke about the subject, like a lot of guys, I was worried about how are women going to see this, because we know there's a lot of work still to be done for women. And we're not saying that shouldn't continue, but there's something that's been missing for young men, and I wanted to shine a light on it. So having done that, you then think, amazing response, can't just walk away from this subject. How do we start to make a difference? And I wanted to find out more about what was going on. And then ultimately, you want to start to make a difference and put positive things in place to not just highlight a problem, but find some solutions.
Yeah. I was looking at the boys who featured in this documentary, and I always felt that when they interacted with you, there was an upness that was kind of created in that moment. If you think about the people coming to watch it, the young boys coming to watch it, what would you like them to leave with?
Well, I hope they feel that this is positive for them, in that it's explaining what's happening for the millions of boys that are out there. You know, there's been quite a lot of coverage perhaps of some extremes recently, but life generally is difficult. Going through school, finding work, really challenging across the board. And we're trying to recognize that and explain to people that might not have that awareness, this is what's going on in every street, really. So I hope that boys feel we're batting for them. And equally, I hope they go away and think, but also I've got a responsibility as an individual. You know, I say towards the end of the documentary, you get one crack at this. So we've got to have the commitment. We've got to make good decisions. As the elders, if you like, we've got to start to put a better system in place for our young men to succeed. But then they've also got to step up. And I think whenever I was coaching, that was always the contract, basically. You coach, but actually the players deserve the credit because they take those messages on board and they become better players and better people.
Yeah. The idea of being a man in this particular time feels sort of over-communicated, but at the same time kind of under-communicated at the same time. The over-communication is everyone's looking at the manosphere and all these big ideas. The under-communication is what's the actual thing young men should be doing to say, at the end of it, you're a good man. How would you explain to a teen what a good man actually is?
Yeah. And I feel like this is the $1 million question, right?
Hopefully I get it after you answer.
Because it does feel hard to define. You know, I think historically men have been considered to be the provider. They would think, I've got to go to work, I've got to look after my family, I've got to be the money earner. And some of those stereotypes have changed over a period. So I think lots of young men are kind of, what does that mean for us? Lots of manual labour jobs have gone that men found themselves doing. But I think there are things that perhaps are highlighted as being a successful life online that are too simplistic. Money, status, possessions. And actually, you know, we've got to remind people that living a good life, being a good role model, being a good person, a good member of society, contributing. You know, my feeling is young men want to do that. They want to work. They want to contribute. There's a lot of people saying that this generation are lazy, they're not motivated, and that just isn't what I see and hear when I talk to young people. They're lacking opportunity, and a lot of the time they're lacking confidence and self-esteem because we're not providing the support around them to give them that confidence.
There are a group of men who are clearly not engaged in sort of the center of what should be going on in this country for men. They're struggling with work and they're already far down the line in terms of being reachable. These are not young boys, these are mature men. And I worry about them. Like, the part of me looks at it and I think about the things in Southampton and I think that looks horrific and I can condemn all the things. But after the condemnation, there's a group of human beings there that need to be reached. Is there something to what needs to be said to that group of people who are already fed up? They've gone so far in life and it hasn't worked and now they've committed to other things. Is there a way to bring them back into the conversation?
Yeah. I think it's a great question. Because I can understand why there is frustration if people are struggling economically, they perhaps don't have work. The blow to self-esteem and confidence is enormous. And if you feel that the system is letting you down or has let you down, that's going to create more frustration. So, but I don't think that's going to help people move forward. And if we're to make a more positive narrative for our whole country, we've got to look at how do we all work together, get back to community. You know, a lot of the answers for these things are around community and unity and working together with each other. Like I always go back to the COVID period. People were doing shopping for their neighbours that, you know, that hadn't happened since probably the Second World War. So all of a sudden in adversity, everybody did bond and they did start to work together. And I feel like there's a similar moment here where the older group, if you like, of us have got to recognise and are recognising what's going on here isn't quite right for young people and for young men. How do we make a difference and how do we start to get the right voices, the right role models for people who might be drifting? You know, there'll be a group of people who will always be positive and there'll be a big group of people who will drift, but if they're given the right guidance, will come in the right direction. And I think we need more voices out there telling the right story and giving a story of hope, because I think there's huge talent in this country and a lot of those guys are just untapped, uncoached talent that have got to find the right direction.
To be honest, I really miss the idea of hope. And I always complain about, I remember London 2012 when the Olympics were on, when football World Cup tournaments are on, but there's moments where everybody comes together no matter what, and there's a feeling of just optimism. That was also recreated by Arsenal winning the league. It seemed to be London turned into... I didn't see the rest of the country, it didn't exist. But I'd love to play a really quick game with you. And it's like, we're going to build a man, okay? We're going to build a man and we're going to pick 3 each. We're going to go one after each other. Just the kind of men that people can look into and be like, I like something about this man, and adding that into a person would be rich. Okay, I'll let you. Should I go first?
Yeah, go for it.
I'll go first. The first one I'm going to go with is Muhammad Ali. It's 10 years, I believe, since he passed away. And his courage is something I always think about as being brave when it's not clear what that bravery will create. Who would you pick?
Well, I mean, I didn't realize you wanted actual examples, but if I think of traits, I would want somebody that treats everybody the way they would like to be treated. So I think being respectful to anybody in an organization, for example, if you're in a business, from the CEO to the shop floor, I think that's a really important trait for me.
Is there, like, in your life, someone that you think as a man, you took the most from? Who's that person that anchored the most out of you?
Great question. Because I think one of the things that having a lack of male role models, whether that's at home, at school, where there's a lack of male teachers, youth clubs disappearing, I think there were lots of men I took things from, because there's learning from what people tell us. But when you've been a dad, you realise your kids stop listening. So then there's the sort of organic learning that happens from just watching people and how they behave and how they interact. And I think that's where, over the years, I just learned from watching, like in football, I was lucky I always had coaches, but people that were leading organisations especially, how did they interact with, you're staying at a hotel, how did they interact with the hotel staff? How did they behave with their wives, girlfriends? Because I think we're always soaking those things up. I remember watching my granddad put his tie on every morning because he was, war generation, polish his shoes because he'd been in the Royal Marines, wet shave every morning. I'd have been 3, 4 years old, 5 years old, but I was kind of taking that on board, standing up for somebody on the bus to have his seat. Small things that had a huge impact on my life, really.